They laughed at her old dress, mocked her simple shoes, and whispered that she didn't belong in their luxurious home. But when the truth came out, when a single document revealed who really owned that mansion, the laughter stopped, and tears took its place. Watch till the end, because this story will change how you look at people forever. And hey, if you believe kindness is the greatest wealth, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Goodness Corner for more true stories that touch your heart. The morning sun painted golden streaks across the marble driveway of the Williams mansion, a house so large that even footsteps echoed with pride. Inside, the Williams family was already bustling with energy and ego. Mr. Edward Williams, a powerful real estate mogul, stood in his tailored suit, scrolling through emails. His wife, Isabella, dressed in silk and diamonds, inspected the living room decor while sipping imported coffee. And their teenage daughter, Chloe, lounged on the sofa, scrolling through social media, ready to flaunt another perfect family moment to her followers. But among them moved a quiet woman with gentle steps, Maria Cruz. She was the new housemaid, simple in every way. Her hands were rough from years of work, her clothes plain, and her shoes worn. She spoke softly, smiled humbly, and never complained. Each morning she arrived before sunrise to water the flowers, polish the furniture, and prepare breakfast. To her, work was not shame, it was gratitude. But to the Williams family, her simplicity was something to laugh at. "Maria, are you really wearing that same dress again?" Chloe giggled one morning as Maria placed a tray of tea on the table. Isabella chuckled and said, "Oh Chloe, let her be. That dress probably means something special to her, maybe she wore it at her last job interview." The two laughed loudly. Maria simply bowed her head, smiled faintly, and replied, "Yes, ma'am. It's an old dress, but a clean one." Her words were calm, but her heart ached. Later that week, the Williams family prepared for a grand celebration, Chloe's 18th birthday. Invitations were sent to the city's elite, the garden was decorated with chandeliers, and caterers rushed to set up tables. Maria worked harder than anyone, ironing napkins, polishing glasses, trimming roses. Yet no one noticed her effort. When the guests began arriving in luxury cars, Maria quietly stood near the kitchen door, ensuring everything stayed perfect. As the evening unfolded, laughter filled the air. Chloe posed for photos, her mother basked in compliments, and Edward boasted about his empire of real estate. But fate was waiting quietly, ready to flip the story. During dinner, a waiter accidentally spilled juice on the expensive white tablecloth. The guests gasped. Mrs. Williams turned sharply, her eyes landing on Maria, even though she hadn't been near the table. "Maria! You useless woman! Can't you manage simple things?" The room went silent. All eyes turned toward Maria. I wasn't near the table, ma'am," she said softly. "Enough excuses." Isabella snapped. "You embarrass us in front of our guests. Maybe you should find a smaller house to work in, this place is too grand for you." A few guests chuckled under their breath. Maria's eyes welled up, but she simply bowed. "I understand, ma'am," she whispered. As the night continued, Mrs. Williams carried her pride like a crown. She didn't notice the quiet man standing near the entrance, Mr. Thompson, an elderly guest and one of Edward's old business associates. He had been watching everything, especially how Maria carried herself through humiliation. When the party ended and Maria gathered the dishes, Mr. Thompson approached her. "You have a kind heart, young lady," he said gently. "Not many can stay graceful under insult." Maria smiled faintly. "I just do what I can, sir. My father taught me that dignity doesn't depend on what others see, it depends on what you do when no one's watching." The next morning, Edward sat in his office, reading a letter that had just arrived. It bore the stamp of Greenstone Properties, one of the firms he'd recently partnered with. He opened it, expecting financial updates, but froze. The letter stated that the ownership of the mansion had officially changed hands. A new buyer had purchased it outright. Edward's eyes widened. This must be a mistake, he muttered, dialing his secretary. Who's the buyer? He demanded. The reply came after a pause, Sir, the buyer's name is Maria Cruz. Edward laughed nervously. That's ridiculous, our maid. But the news spread fast. Within hours, representatives from the company arrived for inspection. Mrs. Williams welcomed them with her usual fake smile. Oh, you must be here to correct some paperwork confusion, she said sweetly. The lead agent nodded politely. We're just here to confirm the property's details with the new owner, Mrs. Maria Cruz. For a moment, no one breathed. Chloe blinked, her phone slipping from her hand. Edward's face went pale. Isabella looked at Maria, standing silently in the corner, her cleaning cloth still in hand. You, she whispered. What nonsense is this? Maria took a deep breath, reached into her small bag, and pulled out a brown envelope. It's true, ma'am, she said softly. This house once belonged to my father. Years ago, he sold it to your company when he was ill. Before he passed, he made me promise that one day, I would buy it back. Edward snatched the papers from the agent's hand, scanning them desperately. His eyes darted over the signatures, the sale documents, the transfer forms, all legal, all signed. The realization hit him like thunder, one of his smaller firms had unknowingly sold the mansion to its former owner's daughter. Mrs. Williams staggered back. This can't be real, she whispered. How could you afford this? Maria looked at her kindly. I've worked for many years, ma'am. My father taught me construction. I built homes, saved every penny, and when the opportunity came, I bought back what was ours. Not to prove anything, but to fulfill his wish. The silence that followed was heavier than any insult. For the first time, the Williams family felt small, not because of wealth, but because of conscience. Maria looked around the room she had cleaned for months, the floors she had polished, the chandelier she had been mocked for touching. Then she said softly, I won't ask you to leave. You can stay for now. But I hope this house will finally be a place of kindness, not pride. Her voice trembled with compassion, not revenge. Isabella lowered her head, tears welling up. Chloe bit her lip, ashamed of her cruelty. Edward simply whispered, We had no idea. Maria nodded gently. That's the thing about people, sir. You never really know who someone is, until you see how they treat those they think are beneath them. She turned and walked toward the garden, her simple dress fluttering in the breeze. The mansion that once echoed with arrogance now stood silent in awe of the woman who truly owned it. Days turned into weeks, and the Williams family slowly changed. The arrogance that once filled their mansion was replaced with gratitude and warmth. Isabella began treating her staff with kindness, Chloe volunteered at local shelters, and Edward donated part of his wealth to build homes for the poor, in Maria's father's name. Maria, still humble, continued visiting the house, not as a maid but as a friend. One evening, Isabella said with tears, You taught us what real wealth means. Maria smiled softly and replied, Kindness is the richest home of all. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Goodness Corner.